Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So let's begin our session with a wonderful quote. Successful presentation are understandable, memorable and emotional. So for starting a new chapter of learning, I Kishanti, being your host for today's event, I want to extend a very warm welcome all of you present here. I hope you are all doing amazing. As we know that presenting with impact is about developing, delivering, and debriefing your way. Presenting with impact gives you the skills and confidence to deliver a presentation you are proud of. Presenting with impact means presenting in a way your audience finds interesting, engaging, and persuasive. Talking about SEMS Welfare Foundation, we are a Section 8 non-profit company registered under the Companies Act 2013 with various recognition from Niti Aayog, MSME, MPCON, DDU, GKY and more. Recognized as a startup by DIPP, MCI and awarded Best Service Award for National Contribution. SEMS Group with a active network of 50,000 professionals, published books and international journals, organized education and health camps for underprivileged children, promoted digital and financial literacy, and contributed to society. Our initiative DigiSection has developed content for 300 plus courses in IT, BFSI, retail, entrepreneurship, impacting diverse age groups. We have executed a skilling project for 600 inmates, signed MOUs for training, collaborated with various organizations, and conducted international conference, film leagues, and another SEMS initiatives. Empowers women through workshops and newsletters, conducting awareness program in digital literacy, marketing, and career development across different industries. We have impacted over 1,000 women across states and recently celebrated a milestone of 100 women associated with the program. On behalf of the whole SEMS family, I welcome you all for today's international webinar on the topic Presenting with Impact. And to add our guest of honor and today's speaker, Dr. Ramnath Dikshit, it's a great honor to have you with us, sir. We are grateful for your presence. Now, let me introduce today's speaker, Dr. Ramnath Dikshit, to you all. Dr. Ramnath Dikshit is a behavioral skill facilitator known for delivering result-oriented training workshops. He has helped organizations to address and overcome both business and people-related challenges through customized training interventions. He practices a four-dimensional approach to training which includes diagnosis, design, delivery, and deployment of learning. His workshops have been consistently appreciated by clients for being result driven, interactive, and highly engaging. He is a visiting faculty to several reputed educational institutions and also conducts public speaking seminars on motivation and management.
Thank you so much, Kishanti, for that wonderful introduction. And good evening to all of you. And thank you so much for joining in. And let me first of all start by saying, wishing you all a very, very happy new year. Let's hope that 2024 turns out to be the promising year that we are anticipating it to be. Well, we have all gathered here today to talk about presenting ourselves with impact. Now, it's one of those topics which I think we need to perfect with each presentation that we deliver. But there are times when we don't know what to do. There are times when we go clueless. And those are some of the questions that we're wanting to understand and answer in today's session. But before we talk about what exactly does the session contain, here are a few things which I think will help you get the most out of the session. So listen to this carefully because this might be really, really useful. Rule number one is to participate. Now, I'm sure Kishanti has given you some ground rules to observe, but very important that you participate. Now, what does that mean is if you have a question at the back of your mind, please feel free to ask, and we will address all your questions towards the end of the session so that it becomes easier for you to grasp and apply that in your context. So please feel free to participate. Number two, it's always a great idea. Any session that you attend, whether it's online, offline, classroom, any session for that matter, is that you maintain your own notepad and a pen, perhaps a diary and a pen, so that you can make notes. All these learning tips or all these insights that you're going to get here will be extremely useful for you. So for you to remember that, it's always a great idea to make a note of it so that later on, whenever you want to reproduce those ideas to yourself or you want to apply those ideas, you can refer to your own notes. It works like magic, trust me. And last but not the least, as I said, once again, if you have any questions, do make a note of it and we will address all your questions and queries. I'll try my best to address all the questions that you have so that you can walk out of the session feeling a lot more confident about your ability to present with impact. Right. So without any further ado, let's get started with today's session. I would request, if you want, you can also keep your cameras on so that, it feels like you're there with me any point in time. Yeah. Okay. So to begin with, how many of you feel like the gentleman in the picture? So I would want you to give me a show of hands, or you can just drop me a yes in the chat box. If you feel that whenever you're about to deliver a presentation, you feel nervous, you feel butterflies in your stomach, you don't know what you're going to do, whatever you feel. So if you really feel nervous at times before you're going to deliver a presentation, I would love to know your thoughts around this. So use the chat box, take a few seconds to reflect upon your mindset, how you feel before you're about to deliver any kind of presentation. Okay, so Kishanti has started by saying she feels nervous. All right. Okay, what about others? Do you really feel nervous or you feel 100% confident? Let me tell you, there is nobody in the world who feels 100% confident before they start a presentation or when they're about to appear in front of other people. In fact, a lot of times when we are about to present ourselves, we feel jittery, we feel butterflies, we feel anxious, as Priya has said here. So the fact is that there is a term for it. In fact, 2 people out of 3 across the globe feel nervous, feel jittery before they're about to present. And this feeling is called glossophobia. So what is glossophobia? Phobia means fear. Glossophobia is the fear of public speaking. And it's a very natural fear. And therefore, a lot of people don't know how to respond when they are in front of an audience. It could be a corporate audience. It could be, let's say, your own friends, your family members, or perhaps you're presenting your thoughts in front of strangers, whatever the context might be. But presenting your thoughts in front of the audience could be burdensome, at least mentally. So what do we do about it? Well, that's precisely the question that we're trying to understand and answer in our discussion today. So it's all about a game of
Sir,
confidence.
actually,
Yes,
sorry to interrupt you. I got a message, direct message. A
yes.
person by name Jyoti. She says she's very confident
Okay.
in public speaking. So, I wanted to share with you this.
Perfect, perfect. So anyone who feels that they feel 100% confident, I would also want to know from you. You can actually use the chat box, or if you want, you can unmute and speak about it as well. What is your mantra for feeling confident? I'm really happy with the fact that there are some people who feel confident, but I would love to know your thoughts, your mantra for that. So use the chat box to let us know. Perhaps your ideas might be productive for other people in the group as well. So do feel free to share your ideas, your mantra for success to feel confident whenever you're about to present.
Yes, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Sir, I am a professional dancer, and dance is to convey, to give some ideas, and give to more idea to share my thought, and dance is always motivate myself to more confident in front of others.
All right. So performing arts is your secret because you have enjoyed dancing in front of the audience. That also gives you the confidence to present yourself verbally in front of the audience. Is that correct? Would that be the right way to
Yes,
look at
sir.
it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Perfect. Very good. So you can see
Sir, dance is my confidence.
dance is your confidence. All right. So your confidence in dance has a rub off effect even when you're presenting yourself in front of the audience, which is, I think, fabulous. Fantastic. So that's one way of being confident. But for the average speakers, we need to do something.
Fun, nervous.
So you feel nervous when you're in front of
Yes,
the
sir. I
audience.
am feel nervous.
Okay, fair enough. Nothing wrong with that, Harsh. As I said, a vast majority of people, even the best of us, tend to feel nervous. So if you're one of them, nothing to worry, my friend. So let's look at how do we master this confidence. What is it that we need to do? So we're going to look at certain positive, practical steps that we can actually take in order to feel more confident whenever we appear in front of an audience. Now, to begin with, we're going to look at something called as the presentation core. Now, this presentation core, you might also want to call it the communication core, consist of 4 ideas or 4 areas that one needs to look at. What are these ideas that one needs to look at? Let's understand them one by one. The first thing you need to understand as a presenter is who. Who is my audience? So let's say, for example, if you're going to present in front of a corporate audience, then the manner in which you design your presentation has to be a lot more professional, right? You got to take into consideration the experience of your audience. You also have to consider their educational background, perhaps the gender mix, the age group, the designation that they have. All of this will help you to understand who is your audience. So
Hello.
understand okay. So the first thing that we need to look at is who is your audience? I mean, what background do they represent? Where do they come from? What is their educational background? So on and so forth. So that's the first part of the communication or the presentation core. The second thing that you need to look at is the why. So what do we mean by why? Why am I delivering this presentation? So sometimes you deliver a presentation so that you can provide insights or information to the audience. For example, if you are an expert in any particular subject, let's say you're an expert in artificial intelligence, the purpose of your talk could be to explain people about what is artificial intelligence, how can they use it for their benefit, what are the pros and cons of artificial intelligence, so on and so forth. So your purpose here is to convince people about artificial intelligence and to inform them about this. That becomes your purpose. But if you're presenting in front of a client, in that case, your purpose is to sell your product or service. So your purpose has changed here. Sometimes you're basically presenting just to help people understand or get information about a concept that they're not aware about. So your purpose could be different, but it's important for you to know, why am I presenting? What is the purpose? What is it that I'm trying to get out of presenting this particular topic? And once you're clear about the why, the next thing you look at is what. Now, it's a very interesting area to look at. Now, what basically means two things. For me to explain this topic to the other person, what is it that I need to cover in my presentation? And what is it that I should not be telling the audience? For example, if the audience is of a very preliminary level, okay, of a very primary level, and therefore understanding is at a lower side, then you basically restrict your presentation to the basics. You don't talk about complicated things so that your audience is able to understand what you're saying. At the same time, if your audience is of a certain pedigree, they're senior by age and experience, then perhaps you can go a little deeper. You can take depth in order to explain your concepts. So it's important for you to know, what is it that I include in my agenda? What is it that I talk to with regards to my audience? And are there certain things which I should not be talking about right now because they could be slightly premature, right? And at the same time, there are things, let's say you're representing an organization and you're talking to potential clients or you're talking to outsiders, then there are also things that you do not want to share because those are sensitive in nature. Those are pieces of information that are confidential, and therefore you should not be sharing that. So the what means, what is it that I share, along with what is it that I should not share. And finally, there is how. So what is the manner in which I should present my information? Should I?
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, can I say something?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So, sir, I think that confidence comes from experience. The more we do, it's a kind of like if we get rejected from somewhere, so it is the path of life, I think,
Yeah.
from where the confidence comes. Like when you get rejected from, several, yeah, multiple rejections when we face in our life. So that is what build your confidence.
Very true. Absolutely, Ashika. Many a times what happens is because you haven't presented yourself enough, you haven't done sufficient amount of presentations, you tend to feel a lot more nervous. But as you gain more and more confidence, which might include a lot of rejections on the way as well, you tend to become more confident. However, confidence also comes from preparing well for your presentation. So when we talk about the presentation core, we are basically talking about the preparation. So when you look at the who, why, what, how, you're able to understand the whole holistic manner in which you need to present your topic. And that's why it's important to go ahead with a plan in place. The plan helps you to prepare well. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Yashika, for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you
So,
so much.
So I hope everyone so far is clear about what the presentation core stands for. If you're clear about it, please give me a show of hands or a yes in the chat box so that I know that you're all with me and you've understood the discussion so far. Moving forward, once we understand what is the presentation core, there is a structure or there is a framework that we can use to make it easier for ourselves to present our ideas. And this structure is what we call as the McKinsey pyramid of structured communication. You can simply call it the structured communication as well. This concept was actually identified or rather discovered by a person called Barbara Minto, who was working with the McKinsey consulting firm. And at the McKinsey consulting firm, because you're dealing with clients and you're consulting them, you deliver a lot of presentations, right? And therefore, Barbara Minto was the first lady to come up with a structure, which I'm going to share with all of you right now. And the structure is fairly simple, but it works like magic if you really know how to use it well. So what you see on the screen right now is the structure. The way we start with this is the main topic. Now, what is the main topic? The main topic is basically what is it that you're going to tell the audience? What is it that you're wanting to achieve? So in a simple sense, it is the why, the purpose for which you are sharing this information with people. Now, for you to tell information about this topic, you further break it down into 3 parts or 5 parts. Minimum 3 to a maximum of 5 points is what you share with regards to the main topic. These are called subtopics, or we might also call them subpoints. So let's say, for example, if you are in an interview and you're sharing information about yourself, someone says, tell me about yourself. Now, in that case, there is a lot of information that you can tell about yourself. But if you put it in the form of a structure wherein you say, okay, there are 3 important things I would like to talk about myself, which is number 1 is my qualification. Number 2 is the skills that I possess. And number 3 is the experience that I have. Okay. So what you've done is you have put your information in 3 buckets. And these buckets are your qualification, your skills, and your experience. Okay. So these become the subtopics, or you might also call them the subpoints. All of these are related directly to the main topic. What is the main topic? Information about yourself. Okay. Now, once you've identified the 3 subtopics, you then further break it down in what is called as data, benefit, and example. Now, this is where it gets even more interesting. Now, when you're talking about yourself, you said you will talk about qualification, skills, and experience. So when you talk about qualification, the first thing you talk about is a numerical piece of information, which is basically the data, which could be something like this. So throughout my career, I have always scored 70% or more in all the exams that I've appeared for. So 70% or more becomes a numerical piece of information. That becomes the data. Now, why is it important? Because when you complement your thoughts with numbers, it adds a lot of credibility and authenticity to the information that you're sharing. And that is why speaking with data is a great way of presenting your thoughts. And once you've spoken about the data, the next thing you talk about is the benefit. Benefit for whom? Benefit for the audience in front of you. So because I have already scored 70% in all the exams throughout my academic career, you will be hiring a person who is academically qualified, who is sound, who is proven in terms of credentials. And that's the benefit for the hiring company because you're in an interview. An example of that, a recent example of that is, I gave this exam for a particular artificial intelligence course, or I attended a communications course, even where I scored more than 75% in that exam and I passed. So what it means is you are basically giving an example, which is an evidence to showcase that what you've said is correct. So all of this is with regards to the first point, which is your qualification. Then comes the next point, which is skills. Again, data, benefit, examples. You could say, well, there are so many skills that I have, but there are 2 pertinent skills I would like to talk about. And these skills could be communication and decision making. So when you say 2 skills, that itself can become data. And now, with regards to these 2 particular points, you can further use benefit and example. So the benefit is when you hire me, you would have a person who has got great communication ability and also the ability to take decisions. So you'd have a great mixture in the form of a professional like that. And an example of this, an example is recently I was given a project in my college And because I was good at communication and decision making, I could lead the project successfully and make sure that my college gets the best project award. Okay, so that becomes an example as well. So this is what you do for each of the points that you are presenting. Likewise, you move on to the next point, which is with regards to experience. So you can say, I've got 3 years of experience with regards to working on these and these assignments. So when you say 3 years of experience, that becomes data, right? So what are you doing here? For each subtopic or each subpoint that you're presenting, you're further breaking it down into data, benefit, example. And that's the trick. Now, why should you do this? One, because you can't speak about everything. That can be really confusing for the other person. Secondly, it becomes difficult for people to remember every piece of information that you share. So you got to choose maximum 3 to 5 points, which people can remember. And once people remember, they're more likely to act in your favor. That's the whole idea of the structured communication. Plus, by using this particular structure, you will be making sure that you present information in a methodical and in a logical flow. Whereas if I generally share information in an interview, I might go on like this. So I have done this course, I've done that course, I've got so many years of experience, my hobbies are reading, my hobbies are traveling. So what happens is you're giving information which is bombarding information, and people don't remember anything by the end of it. Whereas if you go with a structured mindset, then you're able to present information in a logical, sequential flow, and you're also able to give data, benefit, and example so that people are able to understand your points well. So remember this, whenever you present, whether it is in front of 2 people or 20 people or 200 people, if you can present your data methodically, logically, people are more likely to remember it and they are more likely to get convinced with whatever it is that you're telling them. So this is what we call the structured communication framework. And you can use it both for formal as well as informal kind of setups. I hope this particular structured communication concept is understood to all of you. Okay. If you've understood this, once again, please give me a show of hands or a yes in the chat box, and do let me know if you are clear about this. Perfect. Thank you so much. Great. So moving on. So far what we have seen is 2 concepts. One is the presentation and the communication core. And secondly, we have looked at how do we structure our thoughts when we are presenting it to the audience. The next thing, therefore, for us to look at is what is called as the VAK system. Now, what is the VAK system? Now, the name in itself sounds very interesting, but it's very simple to understand. VAK stands for visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Now, what does that mean? Whenever you're presenting yourself in front of the audience, you can break down your audience into 3 forms. Visual audience are those people who like to learn things by watching. So for example, if you can include a video clip or if you have visuals in your presentation, these people get excited by looking at it because they understand and absorb information in visual formats. Whereas if you look at the auditory audience, these are people who like to listen and grasp things. So for them, you need to include examples, stories, case studies, because they learn through that. And then there is another form of people who are called kinesthetic. Now, kinesthetic is something which appeals to a lot of people because it is learning by doing. So they have to touch and feel for them to understand concepts. So if you can involve experiential activities in your presentation, wherein even if you ask people to stand up, do certain tasks, then they will be in a far, far better position to understand what you are telling them. So what is the meaning of all of this? Is that when you're presenting your thoughts and your ideas in front of the audience, consider all the 3. Okay. So imagine that you are going to speak in front of 50 people. Some of them will be visual learners. Some of them will be auditory. And of course, some of them will also be kinesthetic learners. Generally, people like to see a mixture of all. So whenever you're about to present, ask yourself, how can I capture the visual element in my presentation? What is it that will make people look at this presentation and feel, wow, this is so great. I can see things, I can visualize them, and I can remember them. Likewise, if you can include great stories or examples in your presentation, that also appeals to the auditory learners. And of course, if you can involve activities, who doesn't love them? So remember, every time you're presenting or designing your presentation, it is not just about designing your slides. It is also about what are you going to do to involve your audience. because only when your audience gets involved, they're likely to participate better. They're likely to see more results coming out of your presentation. And of course, they will also enjoy the presentation as much as you enjoy delivering the presentation. So always ask yourself, have I covered VAK in my presentation to ensure holistic appeal to the audience that you're going to present? I hope it's very clear to understand this and it helps you to present your thoughts confidently. Right. What else is important there? Well, presenting with impact includes many, many things, right? From the presentation core to the structured communication formula to understanding your audience. But as a presenter, there are two other things that you need to look at. One of them is what we call as paralanguage. What is paralanguage? So paralanguage is what you say in a manner that people can correlate with or people find interesting. Let me give you an example. So there are certain speakers who speak very fast. So what I'm going to tell you is, right? Because they think speaking fast is fluency, but that's not true. It's the speed at which you speak, which people should be able to understand. That is what we call as part of paralanguage. Secondly, it also is about your tonality. So what kind of tonality are you using? So for example, I've seen speakers, they speak more with authority. Okay, so I'm going to talk about something very important for all of you. So that's a very authoritative tonality. With tonality like that, sometimes people might get intimidated as well, right? So you got to also ask yourself, how should my tonality be in front of the audience? Whereas some speakers are very polite, they speak with a lot of compassion, kind-heartedness, and people connect with them immediately. So also ask yourself, how am I sounding to the audience? Is my tone proper at this stage? Perhaps a bit of smile can make your tonality come alive and also make it more easier for people to grasp what you're telling them. Then comes emphasis. What is emphasis? Emphasis is, are you emphasizing key terms in your presentation? For example, when you're making a statement saying that this concept is useful for all of you. Now, the way I said it does not have any emphasis. But if I really want people to hear what I'm trying to say, I would say, this concept is very useful to all of you. So I'm emphasizing on key terms in that sentence so that people take notice. But that's not all. Sometimes all you have to do is take a pause. When I take a pause, immediately people look back and say, why is he stopping? Why is he not saying something? So pause, silence is a very, very important factor when you're presenting your thoughts. So let's say you're on stage and you're talking about a very interesting story. And by the end of the story, you are about to share the moral of the story. You will say something like this. So friends, the point I'm trying to make is you take a pause. And when you take a pause, people listen. And then you make the statement that you want to make. This allows people the opportunity to grasp, to absorb what you're going to say next. So pause or silence is a great way to also attract people's attention. So all of these are aspects of paralanguage. Paralanguage basically in simple terms means how are you going to say things, which includes tonality, speed, emphasis, pause, all of this. All of these are essential part of your paralanguage along with tonality as well. But only paralanguage by itself is not sufficient. You need to complement paralanguage with another important area, which is called body language. So can anyone tell me what is body language? Use the chat box and let me know what is your thought around this concept. What is body language? Why is it important? What do you think about this? Let me know your thoughts in the chat box. Let's see what thoughts do you have about this. Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
So, sir, I think body language is about gestures and posture. It's all about body language. A little bit I know about it.
Sure. Fair enough, Yashika. Thank you so much for that. Well, there are 4 elements to body language that you need to understand. And these 4 elements combined together make your body language powerful, or if not used properly, they can make you look weak as well as a speaker. So what are the 4 elements of body language? Number 1 is facial expressions. Okay. Now, what kind of expressions do you have on stage? So if you're feeling very nervous, your expressions will be deadpan like this. Hello, everyone. I'm going to present a topic like this today. So that nervousness will show on your face, right? People don't like to see that. People want to see a face which appeals to them and which they can connect or correlate with. So one of the basic things you could do is even when you're presenting, no matter what topic. But if you can just look at the audience, acknowledge their presence, and smile at them at the beginning of your presentation, that goes a long way. So you look at the audience and say, thank you so much for joining in. And you just nod at them, smile back at them. That's a great way to start your presentation because that immediately connects with your audience. People love to see a smiling face because anyhow, there is so much of stress and tension all around. People want to break that monotony. So a smile is the simple thing you can do to connect with your audience immediately, right at the start. But expression is just one part of it. The other side of it is what we call as gestures. So what are gestures? As you can see in this particular image, the person has his hands up in the air. So these are gestures. Gestures are basically hand movements. Now, if you just hold your hands like this throughout the presentation and you talk about your topic, you will come across like a robo. And nobody likes a robo, right? So therefore, you've got to use your hands. So sometimes your hands will move in front, sometimes your hands will move in different directions. Can you plan where your hands will be? Not really. It has to be a more fluid, natural flow. But your hands must speak as much as the rest of your body because you're conveying a story. And therefore, the movements of your hand will also help you connect with your audience. So rather than keeping your hands closed throughout, it's important to open your hands intermittently so that you're able to emphasize on key points. So as I said that, emphasize on key points, you saw my hands actually went ahead as if I'm writing something on a piece of paper. That is gesture. So gesturing is a great way of connecting with your audience. Then comes posture. What is posture? Posture is the way you stand or the way you sit in front of your audience. Now, naturally, when you're presenting, you are not going to sit much. You're going to stand and perform. So the way you stand also matters a lot. So the basic idea is to stand straight. A lot of people either go forward like this, so they're hunching in the front, or they're going backwards. All of this is negative body language, or they are not able to stand properly. Their movement is not graceful. So watch out for how you are standing. Now, how can you be 100% sure about the right posture? So before you present yourself on stage, just stand in front of the mirror and look at your body language. What is your body language conveying? Is it conveying that you're feeling confident, or is it conveying that you're nervous? Is it conveying that you're arrogant, or is it conveying something else completely different? So observe yourself in the mirror. That's going to give you great feedback about how you appear in front of the audience. So watch out for your body language, especially the posture. And then last but not the least comes in your eye contact. Now, eye contact is perhaps the most important body language element that you could use effectively to connect with your audience. So one of the things that you can apply is what is called as the lighthouse effect. So what is the lighthouse effect? So if you see a lighthouse in the middle of an ocean, what does it do? It throws light at all the objects, all the ships that are coming towards it. Okay, so it will keep moving like this. Similarly, for you as a presenter, it's important that when you're addressing an audience, especially an audience of higher number, you address all of them. So for example, you start looking at one side and then you look at everyone and then you look at in front as well, so that everybody feels that you're talking to them, that you're connected with them. This allows you to build rapport with your audience. Imagine if there are 200, 500, 5,000 people in front of you, you can't be looking at each one of them. But even if you look at everybody like this, like the lighthouse, it will help you immediately build a bond and connect with people. So it's important that you establish eye contact. I've seen speakers, sometimes they look up, sometimes they look down here, there, and that shows that you're not feeling confident. And the audience starts to feel that you're not interested in connecting with them. So establishing eye contact is absolutely critical for you to create impact when you're presenting. So remember these four elements in the context of body language. What are the four elements? Number one is your facial expression. Remember, a smile is the easiest and the most effective way of connecting with them. Number two is gestures. How you use your hands, they convey a story. Number three is postures, the way you stand, the way you sit, the way you move. All of that is equally critical. And last but not the least is your eye contact. Your eye contact towards the audience will let them believe that you're connected with them, that you're trying to convey something to them, and you're interested in talking to them. So your eye contact also goes a long, long way, right? Okay, so I hope you're clear about both the concepts of paralanguage and body language. Remember, they complement each other. They're not contradictory to each other. So you require paralanguage as well as you require body language when you're presenting your thoughts. Okay, so use them the next time. Very, very powerful for you to convey your points to any kind of audience. Now, that brings us to another important question. How do I take care of the audience? Because this is where a lot of people find it difficult. Okay, so can you think of what are some of the elements which can go wrong when you are addressing the audience? What is it that you got to be aware about while you are dealing with the audience? Okay, so I'll give you 30 seconds to think about this. Let me see, what can you think about addressing the audience? What are the elements that you got to be aware about while handling audience in front of you? What can go wrong perhaps?
Hello, sir.
Yes,
May
yes.
I? Sir, I think when we are talking in front of audience of almost every age group, we need to make sure we have our we put a limit to our mouth. Like we should not talk about certain contradictory statements or conflicts or clashes or even include any taboo matters in our presentation, as it may actually hurt someone's feelings. So I think it should be all normal and optimistic rather than very conflicting way.
Yeah, absolutely. Very true, Anisha, is that you don't say anything which is either controversial or conflicting, or don't say anything where you don't have the facts and figures to back up what you're saying, right? Perfect. Absolutely true. Great. What else? What else do we need to consider or take care or exercise caution with while you're presenting to an audience? Any other thoughts? Hema, you'd like to speak?
Always start, yes, sir. Always start addressing the audience with a greeting, with a welcome greeting, and
Yeah.
then you start with a very easy points, then go to the higher points, whatever it is, so that it will be easy for them to understand what the topic is.
Yeah, very good. So, greet your audience, thank them for being there because they've invested time in listening to your thoughts. And that's another great way to connect with your audience as well. And then use examples that they can correlate with, that they can understand easily, so that you build better connect with them. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Emma, for that. Well, there are things which can also be difficult when you're dealing with an audience. For example, at times, if the audience is asking you a question, how do you deal with that? So if you already know the answer, by all means, you directly share the answer with them. But sometimes you may not have an answer. So how do we deal with that? For example, if someone asks you a question and you don't have an answer, what do you do in that case? One of the things that you need, yes.
We should accept, we should not dodge the matter, but we should accept, and we should say that immediately I'll reply back to you. I'll come to you immediately once I check it. I'm not that confident with that answer, but I'll let you know immediately with the correct answer. But never we should tell wrong answers, or we should try to convince them with something else.
Absolutely. Very, very true. Is that don't try to bluff, because the audience understands whether you are actually speaking with authority or you're trying to dodge the question by bluffing something. So if you're not sure about an answer, you could say that, look, I understand it's an important question. However, I do not have complete information about it right now, and I don't want to provide you any information which could be wrong. So if you can give me some time, what I'll try and do is I'll collect some information about it. You could share your credentials, your contact details with me, and I'll write back to you. That's a better way of dealing with it. But you can also use another context wherein you could say that, well, I don't have complete information on this subject right now, but if there is anyone in the audience who has got some idea around it, I would appreciate if you could share that information. So you don't have to believe that you need to know everything. That's not going to be possible all the time. So you might be an expert, but that does not mean that you can't take opinion from other people. Okay. So if there are other people in the audience who could complement some information, who could share some ideas, welcome that. You can agree or disagree with that, but you have to allow people the opportunity to share their thoughts as well. And the worst thing that can happen is you could say that, look, I don't have information right now, but I'll get back to you. And do get back. When you say that, you have to mean it. You don't just say it for the heck of it. You actually have to get back to people, provide them the information. Maybe you share an article or you share a video clip with them later on, providing the clarification that they're looking forward to. So as a speaker, as a presenter, you have to maintain authenticity, and you have to ensure that you retain your credibility by giving right information. And if you don't have it, share it later, but do share it. Very, very important. Okay. So these are some things that you've got to be able to understand and demonstrate when you're dealing with audience. There could be other areas as well, which could be challenging. Perhaps you could ask me any questions where you find it challenging to address audience. We can also look at those questions later on. So these are some of the important areas that we need to look at in the context of handling audience. Okay. Now, what do we do to practice? Now, all of this is fine. We are good at body language, paralanguage, there is structured communication. I've done everything. But when it comes to the crunch moment, I still feel that I don't have the confidence. So what is it that I need to do while I'm practicing so that I actually feel confident? Because it's all in the manner in which you practice. Now, I know a lot of people do practice, but what is important is, are you practicing the right way? Because if you're not practicing the right way, then your efforts will go down the drain. So number one, here are some tips for you to practice better. You can practice in front of the mirror, nothing wrong with that, but a better way of practicing is to use technology that is available at our disposal today. So for example, put your mobile phone on a selfie mode and video record yourself. So do a small 5-minute or 10-minute talk where you're able to record yourself. What is the benefit? You're able to see your entire body language. Your voice is getting recorded, your expressions are getting recorded, and you can actually watch it over and over again. And that becomes self-feedback. That's a great way of practicing, because when you're presenting, you got to see yourself, and that gives you a completely different dimension of practicing. Similarly, you can also practice in front of some audience. Why? Because you're actually going to present in front of people. Unfortunately, a lot of us practice all by ourselves, alone, maybe in front of the mirror in the washroom. But is that the way that you're going to present? No, you will have live audience in front of you, or at least virtual audience. There are people looking at you. So it makes sense to practice in front of people. Request your family members, your friends, at least have 5-10 people sitting in front of you, deliver your talk and see what people respond to. Are they happy with your presentation? What kind of expressions do they have? Are you able to address their questions or not? This is a fabulous way of practicing your skills. You need live audience to practice. Even if there are 5 people, that's a good start. Yeah. And also have some routines for yourself. We call them success routines. So if you think that you feel very nervous before you go onto the stage, ask yourself what will put you in a great frame of mind. For example, some people like to listen to music before they go onto the stage because that gets their spirit going. Some people like to take a few deep breaths. Yeah. Some people like to simply cut off from the rest of the world, keep away their mobile phone and stay with their own thoughts. So what is your success routine? Do that for at least 10 minutes before you go onto the stage. You don't want your mind to be in a cluttered state before you hit the stage. So take your time, relax, sip some water, breathe deeply, enjoy some music, and then move on to the stage. So how you practice is a very, very important part of it. But the most important part that I love to do is what is called as visualization. So let's say you're going to make a presentation or deliver a presentation the next morning. The evening before that, take 15 minutes, just close your eyes and envision the entire presentation at the back of your mind. What do you think about? So I've already entered the stage. I've started presenting. People are asking me questions. I'm giving answers to those questions confidently. I'm able to handle myself properly. My body language is positive. Everything is going great. Now, this has not really happened. You're thinking about it at the back of your mind. This is called visualization. It's a very, very powerful tool, right? So by visualizing success, you're able to actually demonstrate success when you're in front of the audience. So try it the next time. It doesn't hurt at all. It's a very simple way of practicing. So these are some tricks that you could put to use before you deliver your presentation the next time around. Okay, so those are a few elements that I wanted to discuss with you. What I want you to do now is maybe take a few minutes and jot down 2 or 3 key takeaways. You can also share those in the chat box. And plus, for a lot of people, if you want to read or if you love to read, these are a few books that I would like to recommend for you to further enhance your skill with regards to presentation skills. One of my personal favorite books is Talk Like TED. TED is a very important and interesting forum. So you'll get a lot of videos of speakers around the globe who are subject matter experts, and they present their thoughts on the TED forum. TED is actually an acronym for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. So there is an author called Carmine Gallo who's written this book called Talk Like TED, where he has summarized all great speakers on the TED platform. How do they present their thoughts, their stories in an effective manner? So this book could be very useful for all of you. Second, you can also look at The Art of Public Speaking by Dale Carnegie, one of the greatest speakers and presenters of all time. So you could read that as well. Plus, if there is phobia or fear holding you back, you can read Speak with No Fear by Mike Aker. That could also potentially give you some tools and tips. There are other books as well that you could refer, but these are some of them which you might want to pick up and read and enhance and polish your presentation skills. Okay, so on that note, what we're going to do is we're going to take a pause here so that you can reflect on the questions that you have. Okay, so please help me with your questions. You can either unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can drop me a question in the chat box as well. And as I said, if someone has a challenge with English, you can ask your questions in Hindi as well. I'll try and address your questions in Hindi as well. Okay, so please go ahead, your questions.
Sir, actually, what were the tips or tricks did you involve in your life to sound like this? Because you sound like a reporter from IPL match. So, what were the elements you took up in your life to gain this level of fluency and confidence? And there was no not a single moment where you got struck or either paused. So, what did you actually do?
Okay. Interesting question, Manisha. First of all, thank you so much for calling me a reporter. I'm not. I think those fellows are far more talented and fluent in their language capability. But I will tell you what I went through. So one of the things that I tried and do consciously is to give myself the opportunity and exposure over and over again, which means you got to find or create opportunities for yourself to be in front of the audience time and again. Now, that's a difficult one to do because it demands some amount of courage on your part. But that's the way to do it, is that unless you do it in front of the audience, you can't garner the courage, which means you will make a lot of mistakes. When you identify what are the mistakes that you're committing, you go back and you work on those mistakes. One of the mistakes I discovered about myself initially is that in some cases, my body language was not really that great. So I used to at times hunch in front of the audience. There were also cases where I used to repeat certain words many number of times. Now, how did I understand about it? Because people gave me feedback. So when you receive feedback from people, you are able to highlight areas where you're going wrong. There are other tools as well that you can use. For example, in order to enhance your language proficiency, you could simply read things. I love reading, but I know there are a lot of people who don't like reading, but I'm a big fan, rather a devotee of reading. So read something that you will use both in terms of your subject knowledge as well as to enhance your vocabulary. But if you don't like reading, at least you can watch movies, English movies with subtitles, so that you're able to increase your mental vocabulary and dictionary. Third, talk to people who are better at language skills as compared to your skills so that you can practice on the go, right? So there are different things that you can do consistently, but the consistency is the key. You've got to do 3 or 4 things consistently well over a period of time to be able to bring that into practice. But I would go back to the first point. It's a lot about practicing live. Yeah, it's the difference between net practice and match practice. You might do a lot of practice all by yourself individually, but the real practice is throw yourself in front of the audience. Allow yourself the license to make mistakes, and then you will discover that there is no stopping you. I hope that answers your question, Manisha.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Thank you.
Great. All right. Any other question? As I said, you can drop me a question in the chat, or as Manisha did, you can simply unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sir, I just want you to ask that you have said about the qualifications, skills, and experience, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to ask that if someone is a fresher, so what we can add up into the experience? So that is my question.
Sure. So, Yashika, remember, when I spoke about experience, that was just one example. Instead of experience, you can talk about hobbies as well. Okay. So it's not a set format. So if someone asks you, okay, tell me something about yourself, you could talk about any 3 things that you feel is more important about you. So one, you could talk about your qualification, you could talk about your skills, you could also talk about your hobbies, you could talk about your passion. Yeah, you could talk about anything. So if you're not an experienced person, don't talk about experience. That's perfectly all right. But over a period of time, as you get more and more exposure and experience, then you can also add experience as one of the points. but nothing stops you from talking about any aspect of your life that you find is interesting and there is something that you can add value to in terms of sharing that point.
Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome, Yashika. Yes, do we have any further questions coming up?
So,
Okay. Yes.
so what are all the ways that you suggest for us to overcome the nervousness during our presentation?
Yes. So, as I said, you need to identify success routines. Remember, being nervous is not bad. A lot of us think that if I'm nervous, there is something terribly wrong with myself. So, stop blaming yourself. There is nothing wrong in being nervous. In fact, when you get nervous, it basically means that you're taking your audience seriously. So, that's a great sign. It's a great indication. What you don't want to do, of course, is get so nervous that you don't even want to perform. Now, that's where fear will absolutely cripple you. Don't let fear cripple you. So what can you do? As I said, use the visualization technique. Visualize success. Do it consistently over a period of time. Every time you have to deliver a presentation, visualize success. Secondly, when you are about to present, let's say 15 minutes, 20 minutes before your presentation, you will see some people in the audience. Especially when you're doing a classroom program or you're actually physically meeting people, you'll see them live there. Go and talk to them, shake hands with them, acknowledge their presence, thank them. When you have these small conversations with the audience members, that also brings down your level of nervousness. And you understand that people are there to support you. They're not there to pull your legs or to criticize you. Yeah. Number 3 is you got to give yourself, we call it the learner license, right? When you're driving, you get the learner license before you get the actual license. Similarly, as a presenter, you got to give yourself the learner license, which means it's absolutely okay if I make a mess out of this. It is perfectly okay if I goof up. And the moment you give yourself that license, you will feel that your confidence level is at a completely different high. And that is important because the moment you say to yourself that I have to be perfect, that unnecessarily adds to nervousness. It's pressure. But if you tell yourself, I'm going to enjoy myself. If I mess up, that's okay. No problem. And by doing that, you're able to give yourself a lot of peace of mind and the confidence to present. Okay. So do these things consistently well. Other things that I spoke to you about is, take a few deep breaths, sip some water. Yeah. Keep water handy if you need that. And if nothing works, just look at the audience and smile at them. That is also a great start. Take a few moments before you start. Don't rush. And then you'll start getting the flow as you get more deeper and deeper into it. Try that.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Wow, what a wonderful knowledge given by you, sir. I hope our audience learn many things from your session.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ishanti.
Sir?
If there are any further questions, we can address those.
I would like to highlight some of the points like glossophobia, knowing your audience, structure your presentation, speak with clarity and confidence, wear your delivery style. It was a very effective for our audience, sir. Again, thank you for joining us and sharing your experience and precious time and knowledge with us, sir.
Pleasure, Kishanti.
Again, thank you all for attending today's webinar. And if you have any additional questions, you can contact us by email or telephone. We are happy to provide additional support to you. Please follow on our social media and subscribe YouTube channel for new learning. Thank you so much for cooperating. Stay connected to us for new learnings. I Kishanti, your host for the day, signing off. Have a wonderful day. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Kishanti, and thank you everyone for being here. It was lovely meeting you all, and I look forward to seeing you again with a different topic sometime very, very soon. And may you have a great year ahead. Bye-bye for now.